Okay, so one of the things that I have always found with quilting overall designs is trying to find the right thread color. And after almost 10 years of quilting, I think that I've kind of mastered this skill. So when I take a look at a quilt and I'm putting an all over design on it, I like the thread to blend with all of the fabrics on the quilt. That's not always possible. On this particular quilt, I think it's going to be possible. So I don't like the thread to play hide and seek, so I'm not a huge fan of variegated threads. So what I end up doing is I load up my quilt and I start laying threads along it to see what is going to blend well, and you can see evenly on almost all of the fabrics. So I think you guys can see these. So I kind of already have in my head that I think like the sagey kind of green is going to work best, but I do always tend to still lay out a couple of options. Most of my customers just tell me to choose the thread color and the design that I think is going to work best. So I'm kind of lucky in that respect. So let me try and zoom in here so that we can kind of see the threads a little bit better. So they all, it's hard to tell from the camera, but they all tend to blend fairly well. I am still kind of fond of this one. I think that you see it equally on all of the fabrics, whereas I think this silver one is a little too light. So we'll get rid of that one. And I do just really tend to start eliminating. This neutral, again, that would work. It's a little too light for my taste. I tend to go darker if I have the choice. So we'll get rid of that one as well. And we also have this green, but again, this is a little too minty. So if you were to compare the two greens, you know, one is definitely sagey and one has that minty look to it. And most of the fabrics in the quilt, aside from a couple of them, have the sage and not the mint. So I would tend to go with the sage versus the mint. So we'll get rid of that one. And then I pulled some grays as well. I typically try to stay away from grays, especially on kids' quilts, which this one is. It's made up of some of their t-shirts, just because I think it can tend to dull out some of the brighter colors. So I'll try and stay away from those. So I think all in all, my my go-to will be this sage kind of color. That's pretty much my philosophy on choosing thread colors. So I hope that helps you. I do have a quilt that I'll show you next that has much more negative space and how I choose for that as well. Okay, so here's the other quilt I was telling you about, where there's some open space in the quilting or in the quilt. When I choose thread for something like this, it's a little bit more difficult because you need to make sure, since there's nothing else going on in that fabric, that particular thread looks good. The other thing, on a very side note, because I'll go into this at a later time, is you need to make sure that the quilting design that you're putting on there is the right one. Okay, so I'll go into that at a different time. But as we look at the threads, I've got some grays pulled, and it's kind of hard to see, but this is definitely a gray. It's kind of reading a little bit blue. I've got some browns, and basically the first thing I do is I look at how the thread looks, okay, on that plain fabric. Okay, so there are all the threads on the plain fabric. The problem is that you've got other stuff going on. So you've got this really pretty red and you've got this really pretty brown floral fabric that you have to consider. I do not like the light gray at all, okay, on the border fabric. So I'm going to remove that one immediately and get that out of the way, okay? So as I'm looking at these again, you'll see that the dark one, this very dark brown, where is it? Here we are. The very dark brown, okay, blends really, really well in the border, okay, follow it along, but it stands out quite a bit on this gray fabric here. So I don't like my threads to play hide and seek with me, so I would not choose this thread, so I'm going to remove that one. Don't like hide and seek. So now I've got 3 different threads. I've got kind of a lighter gray, I've got a brown thread, and I've got a darker gray. So let's see how they are looking on our border fabric. Okay, again, I don't like the light gray, this light silvery kind of color. It stands out way too much and blends too much here in the lighter fabric. Okay, so I feel like there again, you're kind of playing hide and seek. Looks really good, looks really bad. So we're trying to find a balance where it looks kind of very even on all of the fabric. So we'll remove that and get that out of the way. So our 2 final choices are this dark gray, okay, and this kind of a mocha-y brownish kind of color. So let's pull them back over and we're going to inspect them on our 3 fabrics. Okay, so we've got it on the brown. They kind of appear equal. We have it on the red. Okay, you see the gray a little bit more, and then here it is on the gray fabric. Now you could really probably choose either one. I prefer the brown, and I'll tell you why. I like the brown on the gray, I like the brown on the red, and I like the brown in the border. Okay, the gray on the red I'm not super fond of. You could do it though, but for me, I prefer this mocha-y brown. So that is the one I'm going to go with.